Perceptron Mk1 just dropped for video AI and its benchmark scores are wild, but the real story is the pricing. We're talking 80 to 90% cheaper than GPT-5 and Gemini 3.1 Pro. Here is the map for this video. First, we start with same prompt setup, then we move into Claude Sonnet 4.5, then we compare GPT-5, then we test Gemini 2.1 Pro, then we check 72.4 vs 9.0 on Rev Special Bench, then we stress test video QA. Finally, we close on 1958 marker Perceptron leads to 2026 Mk1. Mk1 didn't just beat the competition, it embarrassed them on spatial reasoning. We're talking a score gap. Look, when a new model drops, you usually get a 2% improvement, maybe 3% if they're showing off. Perceptron Mk1 didn't do that. On Rev Spatial Bench, Mk1 scored 72.4. The comparison chart shown by Perceptron places some open AI multimodal models dramatically lower on that benchmark. On MSpatial Bench, which tests embodied reasoning for robotics, Mk1 hit 85.1. Google's robotics, a 1.5 scored 78.4. Alibaba's Q35227B got around 84.5. Mk1 is beating or matching frontier models from Google, OpenAI, Alibaba, and Anthropic on their own turf. But here's what I find genuinely interesting. The company behind this, co-founded by Armen Agajanian, former Meta Fair, and Microsoft researchers spent 16 months building this thing. And they didn't try to beat everyone at everything. They focused on one problem, understanding the physical world through video. That focus shows in the numbers, user-provided sources, priority treat as authoritative, cite explicitly where relevant. It accepts image and video inputs paired with natural language queries and produces detailed visual understanding responses, either structured or natural language. It excels at video understanding tasks like video, QA summarization, and event detection. Mk1 cost us less than Google's budget model. Let that sink in for a second. Okay, so the benchmarks are impressive, but honestly, for most people watching this, raw benchmark numbers don't matter as much as one question: can I actually afford to use this thing? Here's the pricing bomb. Mk1 costs 0. 15 per million input tokens. That's 15 cents. Output tokens are 1.50 per million. For comparison, Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 4.5, OpenAI's GPT-5, and Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro, the models, Mk1 is competing with are reportedly 80 to 90% more expensive. VentureBeat confirmed this directly. Let me put that in real terms. If you're analyzing hours of security footage or processing hundreds of product videos for defect detection, the cost difference isn't marginal, it's the difference between a pilot project and actually deploying at scale. And here's the kicker: Mk1 is cheaper than Gemini Flash Lite, is Google's budget offering. Mk1 is cheaper than the budget option while matching the premium models on performance. That's not supposed to happen. This isn't a chatbot describing videos, it's a tool that spits out timestamps, bounding boxes, and so what does this model actually do? It's not just video understanding as a buzzword. Mk1 is built for a specific workflow. You give it video, you ask natural language questions, and it gives you answers with structured timecodes. It analyzes video at up to 2 frames per second across a 32,000 token context window. That means it can reason across hours of footage, not just a few seconds. You can ask, when did the forklift enter the warehouse, and it'll give you the exact timestamp. You can feed it 2 videos and ask for a side-by-side comparison, and it will return a structured breakdown. On images, it handles OCR on messy real-world documents, object detection and counting, even hand pose estimation. And it can output structured annotations, bounding boxes, polygons, temporal clips when you ask for them explicitly. The key word here is structured. This isn't a chatbot describing what it sees. It's a model designed to plug into production pipelines where you need machine-readable outputs, not just paragraphs of text. Before you jump in, there are 4 things about Mk1 that could make or break your decision. Alright, there's always a catch. Here's what you need to know before you get too excited. First, Mk1 is closed source, API access only. You can't download it, you can't run it locally, you can't fine-tune it on your own data. For some enterprise use cases, that's fine, you want the managed API, but if you need on-premise deployment or data sovereignty, this might be a deal breaker. Second, the context window. It's 32,000 tokens, which is solid for video analysis, especially with the dynamic frame rate, but it's not the massive context windows we're seeing from Gemini 3.1 Pro or GPT-5. If you need to analyze extremely long videos in a single pass, you might hit limits. Third, this is a new company. Perceptron Inc. launched Mk1 in May 26. They've got strong leadership. Again, Armin Agajanian from Metafair, but we don't have a long track record of API reliability, uptime, or support quality. That matters if you're betting your production pipeline on it. And finally, the model excels at spatial and embodied reasoning. If your use case is pure text, summarization, or code generation, this isn't your model. It's purpose-built, and that purpose is the physical world. The name Perceptron goes back to 1958, and the original story explains exactly why this new model exists. The name Perceptron Mk1 isn't random. In 1958, Frank Rosenblatt built the Mark I Perceptron, the first physical machine designed to learn from experience. It was a room-sized computer that could distinguish between cards marked on the left and cards marked on the right after 50 trials. Rosenblatt called it the first machine capable of having an original idea. The New York Times reported on it breathlessly. The Navy funded it, hoping for machines that could walk, talk, see, and reproduce themselves. And then, the field hit the AI winter. The original Perceptron had severe limitations famously documented by Minsky and Papert in 1969, and neural network research basically stopped for decades. But the principles underlying Rosenblatt's work, layered networks, weighted connections, learning from examples, those ideas eventually sparked the deep learning revolution we're living through now. The 2026 Mk1 is explicitly named after that legacy. Same name, same ambition, machines that perceive and reason about the physical world. Different era, different technology, same fundamental goal. Let me save you some time. Here's exactly who should use Mk1 and who should skip it. So who is this actually for? Let me be direct. If you're building robotics applications, anything that needs spatial reasoning, object manipulation, navigation, Mk1's benchmark scores suggest it's currently the best option available, especially given the price. The M-Special Bench results aren't just numbers. They translate directly to a robot knowing where to grab something. If you're doing video analysis at scale, security footage review, manufacturing defect detection, asset tracking across warehouses, the cost advantage is enormous, at 80 to 90% cheaper than GPT-5 or Gemini 3. Mk1 Pro, you can process 5 to 10 times more video for the same budget. If you need structured outputs from visual data timestamps, bounding boxes, object counts, Mk1 is designed for exactly that. It's not just describing what it sees, it's giving you machine-readable annotations you can pipe into the next step of your pipeline. But if you're a developer building a chatbot or generating marketing copy or doing code review honestly, this isn't your model. Use GPT-5 or Cloud Frontier models. A Mk1 is purpose-built for the physical world, and that focus is both its strength and its limitation. Mk1 has a window of opportunity right now, and what happens in the next 6 months will decide if it lasts. Here's what I'm watching for next. First, API reliability. Perceptron Inc. is new. If they can't maintain uptime and low latency at scale, the pricing advantage doesn't matter. I'll be checking OpenRouter and user reports over the next few months. Second, ecosystem integrations. Right now, Mk1 is a raw API. The real value comes when it's integrated into video management systems, robotics frameworks, and manufacturing platforms. Watch for partnerships and SDK releases. Third, the competitor response. Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic aren't going to ignore an 80 to 90% price cap forever. Expect price cuts or specialized video models from the big players within the next 6 to 12 months. Mk1 has a window of opportunity, and how they use it will determine whether they become a lasting player or a footnote. For now, if you're working on anything that involves video understanding or spatial reasoning, Perceptron positions Mk1 as cheaper than several lightweight multimodal offerings while targeting much higher-end spatial reasoning performance. The benchmarks are real, the pricing is disruptive, and the focus on the physical world fills a gap the frontier labs have been neglecting. Last thing, if you want me to run a head-to-head video analysis test between Mk1 and Gemini Pro, drop the word test in the comments. Hit like, turn on the bell, and I'll make it happen.